Sunday Fun Day. Welcome on in to Let's Bet It, presented by our friends at Superbook Sports. I'm Lauren Jabara. That's Jared Smith. Jared, happy Sunday. How are we?
I'm good. The World Cup final is underway. I bet both
Yes, it
teams to
is.
score. I bet a little sprinkle on Olivier Giroud to lift to score as well at like 3-1. And there was this really fun prop that I also bet that I know you're gonna like. It's Argentina to lift the trophy with a little parlay of Joe Burrow over 1.5 touchdown passes today. Little cross sport
Ooh,
football parlay. So that's
why not?
obviously, why not? Let's have a little fun. It's the World Cup final. It doesn't happen often. But other than that, I'm good. I just did a
Yeah,
calculation. 4 days now today of 19 straight with football up until January 2nd. 19
love
straight
that
football
for us.
days. Thursday, this is the 4th day. Still have 15 more straight days of football. So strap up your boots.
Let's do it, people. We got a lot to get into, both NFL and bowl games. We're not going to maybe talk about as many bowl games today, but we do have a lot to get into. First of all, Saturday NFL reaction. Some crazy stuff happened last night. Sunday line moves, because there's some line moves that we're seeing that have some significance. We have prop lock and drop it with our guy Prop Holiday. Week 15 key games. We have teasers, and then the Pickswise 3-star play of the day. So without further ado, let's get into it. Let's bet it. We'll start it out with the Vikings and the Colts. And that was one of probably the craziest games I've ever seen in my entire life. The Vikings make the greatest comeback in NFL history. They trailed 33-0 at halftime. Patrick Peterson walks into the locker room and says, guys, we need 5 touchdowns. Let's take it one at a time. Kirk Cousins said he looked over and said, is he kidding? But he wasn't kidding. And guess what? That's exactly what they do. Only like 3 out of 1,000 times will a team score 5 touchdowns in a half. The Vikings outscored the Colts by 36 in the second half, won in overtime. Their chance of winning at halftime was 1%. What did you see from that game?
Madness. Utter madness.
Madness.
So I tweeted this out last night. I lost both my totals yesterday, the under in Vikings Colts and in the over in Browns Ravens. We'll go Vikings Colts first, but line closed 1.5 lower than where I bet it. And that's a good bet. And I have to train myself not to be upset with making a good bet and then losing it, because the first 5 minutes of the game was block, punt for touchdown, pick, this. Like, it's just that game had every fluky, absurd play that you could possibly have in a game in the first half on the Colts side. I don't think I've seen a team play worse than the Vikings did in the first half of that game. Like, at one point, Kirk Cousins got stepped on by his center and he fell straight backward. You ever done one of those trust falls where you just fall backwards and your friend catches you?
Back in the day, the glory days.
Yeah, back when you did the ropes courses, back when you were in high school or whatever. That was what it was in the first half. It was a trust fall for the Vikings. And Kirk Cousins was plopping all over himself. And then the way that this NFL season has been, fluky and just bizarre. And you credit Minnesota. They never gave up, never surrender, right? That's what Buzz Lightyear to infinity and beyond. I mean, it was a very impressive or actually, no, sorry, that's Galaxy Quest. I'm getting my Tim Allen movies confused. Never give up, never surrender. I don't know if you've ever seen Galaxy Quest. Fantastic Tim Allen movie.
I have not, and I don't plan on it, but that's okay.
Alan Rickman. Oh, Alan Rickman's so good in that movie. Sorry, I digress. It's Sunday. We're having fun. The World Cup's on. Everyone relax. It was just one of those great games. There's really no way to explain it with logic or reason. It was just one of those games, and I'm glad that the Saturday NFL is back, because yesterday was freaking awesome. It was awesome.
I know. It is crazy. Truly, I love Saturday NFL. The Colts now dropped to 1-4 on Jeff Saturday, who were trying to fight it out on a Saturday.
Oh,
they didn't
poor
get
Jeff
the win.
Saturday.
Let me give you 2 crazy stats right now. The Colts have been outscored 69-9 in their last 2 games in the second half, which is crazy. This one's going to blow your mind, Jared. This one's going to blow your mind. Since 1930, teams that were up 30 points at halftime are 1,548 1-1.
1,000. Must have taken a long time to write that trend up.
Yeah. 1,548 1-1 when trailing by or when up by 30 points at half. Literally, only one team is lost and one team is tied since 1930 when being up 30 points at halftime. Well, the Colts are one of them. So it's pretty crazy to see that. We also had the Browns. They won over the Ravens. They were able to take advantage with no Lamar Jackson. It was a strong defense, though, for the Browns that got the job done because Deshaun Watson wasn't great again for the third straight week. 18 of 28, 161 yards and a touchdown. Kind of struggled to push the ball downfield. Myles Garrett was a difference maker in this one. 2 sacks on the Ravens' final drive. They were able to win. They're kind of still maybe have a slight opportunity to make the playoffs in a wild card spot now, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah, you're right about Watson. The ADOT was low and CPOE was bad. Like the nerd numbers back up that he was, I would say, as good as he was last week. Like we expected him to take a little bit of a step forward this week. Didn't happen. This one was on the Ravens though, and I again made an overbet at 37, closed 38.5. Felt good about it. Felt like, all right, 3.5%, 4% closing line value. That's a good bet. Mm-hmm. The Ravens just, I mean, it was like shoot themselves in the foot. How many times? Their first possession made it inside the 10, no points. They had drives. Yeah. I tweeted it out last night. They had drives that reached the, 7, 35, 31, 15, 31 yard line, and they had 3 points. That just can't happen in the NFL, especially when you have Justin Tucker, who's the best kicker on the planet, who missed 2 kicks. One of them was blocked. But again, like when those things happen in the NFL, and for those of you that tailed me on the over, you're probably like, this guy's an idiot. 13-3, bets an over. You have to train your brain to be like, hey, listen, we got 4.5% CLV on this bet. The Ravens had a million chances. They didn't capitalize on them. Next, move on, next bet. So I don't have a lot of like sharp insight here besides the fact that the Ravens look very, very sloppy. And that's kind of been the MO all year. The issue is usually they look sloppy in the fourth quarter. In this game, they look sloppy for all 4 quarters.
Yeah.
They need Lamar Jackson back. And I don't know when he's coming back, and I don't know how effective or efficient he will be when he does. But right now, I don't think Baltimore looks like a playoff team, despite that really good defense. I mean, listen, they held Cleveland 13 points. You win a lot of games, you hold your opponent to 13 in the NFL, but didn't look great on offense.
Yeah, they need someone that can push the ball downfield. They need someone that can push the ball downfield at this point. Lamar Jackson was 1 to 3 weeks with that knee injury. We're at the 3-week mark at this point. Tyler Huntley started the last 3, so going to be interesting to see what happens next week. Last but not least, the Bills win narrowly over the Dolphins. This game was so exciting. Last-second field goal. Tyler Bass went fishing for a big bass, 25-yard field goal. As time expired, Buffalo Bills playoff bound for the 4th straight season. Such an exciting game. Miami is now in the thick of the wild card race at 8-6. But, I mean, like, I know there's no moral victories in sports, but the Dolphins have to have a little bit of a moral victory after that one, going into Buffalo, playing in the cold. Mike McDaniel wishes it was even colder than what it was, according to his T-shirt that he wore at practice. But the Dolphins played extremely well. The Bills just played a little bit better, and it kind of was whoever's going to have the ball last at that point was going to win the game.
Yeah, I agree. Game goes way over. And it was, I think we talked about this on Playbook during the week. The weather tends to be more of a story pregame than the actual impact on the game. And that was clearly the case here. The bands didn't come in until later, and we didn't see significant snow, and the wind wasn't a factor. The cold really wasn't a huge factor in the game. Both teams moved it at will.
It was cold.
Yeah, sure, of course. But it didn't have any impact on the game. Like, the game played out like any game would. The game flew over by the first, I want to say like the mid-third quarter. And I think there was like 34 points scored in the first half. So there was no impact. Like everyone was like, oh, the win, and a total drop, 4 points. Like it didn't have an impact on the game. So that's kind of that's like another notch in my belt when I think about weather impacting games, and I always feel like we talk about it and it means more pregame than it actually does on the field. But that's neither here nor there. The game itself, I think, and the numbers don't say it because the Dolphins scored a lot of points, But when I dig a little deeper on Tua, he had another game really, really poor analytics with his completion percentage over expectation, negative 7.5%. So they ran the ball really well, which is not something Miami's done in a while. I credit them for that.
Yeah.
Tank actually went on a show earlier this week. I was watching one of his spots, and he said that was something that he wished they did against the Chargers, and they didn't. And they did that in this game. And you saw the result. But Tua's still missing a lot of easy throws. And that's going to be a problem for Miami going forward. For Buffalo, I mean, it's Josh Allen. I mean, he was a Superman, right? Literally Superman.
He's done that so many times already this season. It's crazy.
When he does that, Buffalo is very tough to beat. We hadn't seen that in a few weeks. And Buffalo is really tough to beat when he does that. I still don't think they're going to win the Super Bowl. And it's because of the game we saw last night. They had trouble stopping the run, and they had trouble getting pressure on Tua. And that's what's going to do them in, I think, in the playoffs, because they can't get after the passer anymore without Von Miller. So nice win for Buffalo, but I'm still a little sour on them long term. And Miami, same problems from last week. Tua's very inaccurate outside the hashes, and we'll see how he responds. Tough stretch, though, for Miami. 2 weeks in California, then the game in Buffalo on a short week. They'll rest up. They get Atlanta next week. I think they'll win that game and get back on track.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how the Bills go moving forward. They have clinched a playoff berth. Congrats to them. Congrats to the Eagles, who are already in the playoffs. Some exciting stuff happening in Week 15. I like Saturday NFL, but now we move on to Sunday NFL, and there's been quite a few line moves that we've noticed. First of all, the Panthers taking on the Steelers. It opened up with the Panthers laying only 1 point, kind of a pick-up. Now the Panthers are laying a field goal. They're -3. And I think a lot of this has to do with the fact that Kenny Pickett's out with that concussion. Mitch Trubisky starting at quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Is that what you think, too?
Yeah, Packers, not Falcons next week for the Dolphins. I'm sorry. Yes. Kenny Pickett out, Trubisky in. We even saw some rumblings of Mason Rudolph starting this game for Pittsburgh, which would have been a complete curveball. That's not where we're going to get. This line, again, if you read the column earlier this week, Panthers -2 is a bet. Now it's 2.5, trending towards 3. Even if we lose this bet, I still feel like I made a good bet. So we have to train our brains to think that way, because I have no idea what's going to transpire once the game actually starts. I think what will transpire is Pittsburgh will struggle to move the ball against Carolina's top 5 defense, and you're going to see a Carolina offense with Sam Darnold that has been slightly more efficient, I guess considerably more efficient with Darnold than Baker, and even way more efficient than when they had PJ Walker. But what I really like about this Carolina team is the heart, with what they've done rallying around Steve Wilkes, who's their interim head coach, took over for Matt Rule. It's been, the hottest fire forges the strongest steel. They fire Matt Rule. They trade Christian McCaffrey. They waive Baker Mayfield. That's head coach, best player, quarterback. And yet here we are. And Carolina's 1 win and then 1 Tampa Bay loss on Sunday afternoon against the Bengals, away from being a first place NFC North or NFC South team by the end of the day. I mean, it's a truly remarkable turnaround for this Carolina team. I think they'll win this game. I think laying anything less than 3 is a good bet, and that's where I'm at.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting game. I'm excited for this Cowboys-Jags game. The Cowboys opened as 6-point favorites. Now it's moved 2 points. They're only 4-point favorites at this point. Why do you think we've seen this line move?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of weakness with Dallas. I really don't like what we saw last week from Micah Parsons and that defensive line. And Cam Robinson and the other tackle, his name's eluding me right now as I pull up my notes, Jawan Taylor, they played well last week against Tennessee. 1 pressure between the 2 of them. And I was really surprised Laramie Tunsil, the Texans starting tackle, who's had his ups and downs, but mostly a pretty good player, held Micah Parsons to 1 pressure. And then we see after the game, or maybe it was Monday or Tuesday, whenever they do their stupid podcast, they're already talking about the Eagles game. I would be concerned with the Jaguars before you worry about the Eagles, friends, because it would be an embarrassing loss if you blow that game today, and then next week's game against Philly means that much less. So the line movement here is telling me Trevor Lawrence, who was questionable, is going to play. I did jump in with just a little slight unit on 4.5. Our pals Todd Furman and Payne from Bet the Board, they gave out Jaguars plus 4.5. as their best bet of the week on their podcast. So that's probably why you're also seeing a little bit of trend down. They tend to have a little bit of say in the market as well. And then the Trevor Lawrence news this morning now getting this to a solid 3.5. So I put a unit on 4.5. I think the Jags are a decent bet. I think Jacksonville will get after Dak Prescott. We'll see how Dak responds from what was a pretty flubby week. A couple of turnovers, some interesting throws, not a great offensive performance overall by Dallas. So I think Jacksonville, a little bit of a live pooch here at home.
Yeah, last but not least, the Raiders pick 'em against the Patriots. It's moved now to the Raiders minus 1.5 points. Do we just not think the Pats defense can hold the Raiders at this point?
This is a little surprising of a move, to be honest with you. Well, I guess it's not that surprising when you look at the look ahead last week, which was Raiders -2. And then it reopened as a pick after the Patriots' really solid performance and the Raiders doing what the Raiders do, which is blow leads. And now we're kind of seeing it revert back to the mean.
Yeah.
I don't really have a lot here, to be honest with you. I didn't cap this game. I didn't like the number. I think New England wins, but I don't really have anything very exciting for you here, to be perfectly honest with you.
That's
I think
fine.
New
Do you want to know
England
who will
wins. I
have?
think it goes over.
Do you want to know who will have some exciting things? Is our guy Bobby Stanley. Let's bring him
Yeah.
on in for a pop, lock, and drop it segment. He's always given us those red hot props for week 15. We got Sunday props. Bobby Stanley, happy Sunday. How are we?
What's going on? We're coming off of NFL Saturday, which was awesome.
Yeah.
Yes.
Gosh, the Fighting Saturdays couldn't get it done on Saturday for Jeff Saturday, but that's
Yeah,
okay.
that
We
sucked.
saw one of the greatest comebacks in NFL history. Now we move on to week 15 on Sunday, getting back to the normal schedule. Let's start it out with some of your props. Jalen Hurts, my guy with the Eagles right now. You like his overpassing?
I do, and we had some comments this week from Micah Parsons, kind of, I guess, poking and prodding at Jalen Hurts. I don't know if that's bulletin board material, but I'm hoping he carries that into the game against the Bears. I'm hoping he carries this into the Bears game this week. Their defense is a perfect storm for Jalen Hurts. 31st overall in pass DVOA, bottom 10 in blitz rate, bottom 10 in pressure rate. And what we've seen from Jalen Hurts this season, more than any other season, he's really getting through his progressions. He's able to sit in the pocket, look off defensive backs. He's playing exceptionally well. I love this line at 224.5. He's hit it in 4 of 6 road games this year. I think it's a good spot. I think it's a good line. I'm rolling with Jalen Hurts in the passing yards.
Jalen Hurts. By the way, great job on the picks yesterday. Made me look smart on my Fox show, giving out your props there. Pittman and Peoples-Jones had a good game too. Let's get a little bit of, well, I guess we already kind of talked about Dallas a little bit. And if we think the Micah Parsons hangover is going to carry over into this game, I don't want to say hangover. I give Laramie Tunsil some credit. And we'll see how the Jaguars' offensive line holds up in front of Trevor Lawrence, who's a bit nicked up today with a foot injury. But that doesn't deter you from betting his rushing prop.
He's questionable with the toe injury, and I took a look at that. What really alerted me to this line is Trevor Lawrence over 11.5 rushing yards. When I handicap QB rushing props, I immediately look at a defense's ability to generate pressure. Well, Dallas is number 1 in the league in pressure, 7th in hurry rate, and they're actually middle of the pack in blitzing. So what that tells me is they're able to generate pressure while keeping defensive guys back in coverage. So I think it's going to be a little bit tougher day for Trevor Lawrence. Obviously, they overlooked Houston last week. Let's hope that was a reality check. They got out of there with the win. But does my theory hold up? Well, Dallas has given up this line to 6 quarterbacks this season, so I like seeing that. And Lawrence, when fully healthy, he's no slouch in the running game. He averages 16.8 rush yards per game. He has some athleticism to him. So I know the toe is something to consider, but at 11.5, I think he takes off a couple times. If Micah Parsons is running after you, I don't care how much your toe hurts, you're going to take off.
Yeah, you ain't just sitting there waiting to get sacked. That's for damn
Fight or
sure.
flight.
I like this last one a lot. You always give us your outside touchdown score, long shot. I feel like Jared might like this one too. Zach Wilson, baby, starting under center.
Hide your mamas.
Hide your mama. There's some storyline to
Literally.
this. And there's some actual data behind it. Zach Wilson, 4 rushing touchdowns last season, 4 of which came after November 11th. November 28th. Why does that matter? A little bit more rushing when it gets colder, and it's going to be cold today in New Jersey. The Lions give up the most rushing touchdowns per game to opposing quarterbacks. So it's a great spot for him. And then we have the story angle. He needs to win over this team. He needs to re-win this fan base. I do think he's going to struggle to make plays with his arm. Doesn't mean he can't make plays with his legs. So at plus 600, I think it's great value. And I think we see him a little more active with his legs today. So good spot against Detroit. Good opportunity to really win back that Jets team and maybe take the role the rest of the way for the rest of the season. So give me Wilson a score, man. Plus 600 is too good to pass up.
Bobby, I actually bet 2 props last night in this game. My own personal handicaps, didn't steal them from you, which is what I normally do when I bet props. But I bet Zonovan Knight over 62.5 rushing yards, and I bet the anytime touchdown at plus 137. I feel like the handicap is pretty similar to what you just said about Zach Wilson, but you just take Zonovan Knight and you put him in that spot. And to me, Zonovan's been I've been so impressed. Undrafted free agent, he's looked all the rage. What do we think about Bam against the Lions today?
I saw a couple. I think it was you. You put up a couple stats this week about how
I did.
It was what is it? It was yards
after contact. Yards per rush after first contact. He is about 3.4 yards per rush after first contact, and he's ahead of like a lot of guys that you would think would be very high on that list. Dameon Pierce, Aaron Jones, McCaffrey, Patterson, Dalvin Cook, like really good running backs.
I have one of my uncles text me this morning, and he follows my stuff, and he goes, "I got a prop for you. You got to talk about it today on your show." And and I swear to you, it was Donovan Knight over 62.5 rushing yards. So Larry, if you're watching, you're getting this.
Uncle Holliday, Uncle Larry.
I love it. I love the line. I do think they're going to make Zach Wilson do as little as possible with his arm. Hopefully they don't get behind too much from Detroit, but that defense should keep them in check. No, I love the Zonovan Knight play. And then the touchdown at plus 136. When they get inside that 20, their play calling in the red zone has been awful this year, and they need to win.
It has. That is true. LaFleur's been a disaster in the red zone this year. I feel like a 10-year-old with Madden 2022 could do a better job.
Let's take all the thought out of it. Just give the ball to Zonovan Knight when you get inside the 10. So you're getting that plus money, and it's against this Detroit defense. Has not been great in the red zone against running backs. So, no, man, I love both plays.
I love it. Bobby Stanley, we still appreciate you. We'll be talking to you tomorrow for some Monday Night Football props. So don't miss us too much. We'll see you in like 24 hours.
You guys got it. Best of luck today.
Breaking news. Lionel Messi just scored on a penalty. France.
Wow, that's exciting.
Made a flub in the bot. Yo, Messi with these penalties. I just watched it. I'm on a little bit of a delay. It's like it's almost like when you had the little kids hoop growing up, and it was high, and then you put it down, and you're like, I just want to see what it feels like to dunk, and you just like reached out and dunked it. Like that's Lionel Messi on penalties. Like it's just it's absurd. Like he never it never even comes close to being.
He never misses. Like, I mean, he wants to win his first World Cup ever before. He wants to win his first World Cup ever before because he said he's not playing in a World Cup again next time. So good for him. Mbappe still has the world ahead of him. We'll keep you posted if anything else happens. All right, let's quickly go through some Week 15 key games. First of all, the Bengals taking on the Bucs. Bengals laying 3.5 points, and that total steamed up from earlier this week, 43.5 to 46.5. But the Bengals right now on a 5-game winning streak. They beat the Browns last week, Week 14. The Bucs were slowly picked apart and torched by the 49ers and Brock Purdy last week. This game has a lot of implications, though. The Bengals were tied with the Ravens for the top spot in the AFC North. They can pass them after the Ravens lost yesterday. The Bucs are only ahead by 1 game in the NFC South. We'll talk about that Panthers game a little bit too. But how do you see this one playing out? Because I'm kind of riding the Bengals here.
Yeah, I think this is one of those games that you're going to hate me for because I'm going to be like, oh, I love the Bengals, but the number's weird, and that's why I wouldn't bet it. If anything, I think Tampa might have a sliver of value at 3.5 because of where the look ahead was. And we have not seen that push through what I think is kind of a ceiling at 4. Like I thought if we got to 4, that would be the indicator on how much sharp interest there is on the Bucs. And every time we kind of inched closer, it got bought back down immediately. it's gotten, because listen, there's a lot of love for the Bengals in the market right now, obviously, and there's a lot of hate for the Bucs, obviously. But when I see that escalator towards 4 and it gets bought back down immediately, kind of like the Dolphins last night, like everyone loved the Bills, Dolphins, how are they going to win? And then it gets to that 7.5, and then bang, gets right balled back down, and then bang, gets bought off 7. So I think there's a lot of sharp interest for the Bucs at 4. And my guess is if it does get back to 4, I think this is the 1:25 Pacific game. Yeah, it's the 4 o'clock window. If it gets to 4 at any point today, my guess is it gets bought back down. So 3.5 is probably the best number you'll find on Cincy, and 4 I think is the best number you'll find on Tampa. But there's a bit of a battle here between the sharps and where they see these teams. You know me, I'm all on this Bengals train right now. I think this is a possible letdown game. They're missing a couple key pieces defensively. I know Hendrickson's out. I could see the Bucs giving you one last performance against Cincy and then kind of falling in the tank. I wouldn't be shocked if this game is close, because everyone thinks it's not going to be close.
Yeah, here's the thing: the Bengals are 13-3 against the spread in their last 16 road games, while the Bucs are 1-6-1 against the spread in their last 8 home games. So if the trends do favor you, my friend, take the Bengals laying the points, but also some good value on the Bucs as well. This is one of my best bets of the day, which I know you're on the opposite side, and it's our two teams playing against each other. It's the Lions taking on the Jets. The Lions are now +1.5, and the Jets are the favorites, and now -1.5. The Lions started the season slow, heating up at the right time. They beat the Vikings last week, and the Jets have been consistently and constantly piling up losses over the last few weeks. They lost to the Bills. They dropped 3 of their last 4. I know we're on opposite sides. The line is flipped since we had Pickswise playbook. What do you think is going to happen in this one?
Yeah, if you really want my intense breakdown here, go watch playbook. Because we did dive into this game pretty in depthly, and how I feel about the Lions' recent stretch. Which, listen, our pal Jeff Benson, who works at one of the books in town, does a great job putting his ratings out there. He says the Lions are a top 10 power rating team right now, or at least in the vicinity of the top 10. So this is a really good Lions team. I think this is a good Jets team too. I think the unknown here is obviously Zach Wilson. That's the part we didn't handicap correctly on Thursday when we did that show. Did not expect Zach to be on the shelf, or Mike to be on the shelf. Operated under the assumption that it was going to be Mike White starting. And he said he was going to come out and start, but the Jets doctors, that's the part about that game that just makes me go, what? The Jets doctors let Mike White back into the game last week against Buffalo, but then didn't clear him 4 days later for contact. Like, why did he get allowed back in that game?
Yeah,
but it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. So that was a little bit unsettling, and also I don't know what's going on with the Jets doctors in Florham Park. Hopefully they figure that out. But the Zach Wilson saga continues, and I'm kind of happy for him in a sense. Obviously, I wanted Mike White to start. I think it's better for the Jets in this game. But I'm happy that we get to see Zach get another opportunity. As a Jets fan, I want to see how he responds from being put in the penalty box for the last month. And as a bettor, I think the market told you that there's still some upside there, because the line moved back towards Detroit right after the move. And then what have we seen over the last 24 hours? Once things kind of settle in, you're like, yeah, maybe Zach Wilson, there is some upside there. And then all of a sudden the Jets flip back to a favorite yesterday-ish. So I think he's going to play better than people think, which there's not a lot of hope for him. People just are writing him off like he's going to be the next Ryan Leaf. We'll see how he responds to this. I hope he responds positively, obviously. I know you hope he responds negatively. I don't know. There's a lot of variance to that situation. I'm still rolling with my Jets pick.
Yeah.
I also bet the over today. Remember we talked about the key total. It was 44.5 on Thursday when we taped playbook. Zach Wilson gets announced in. It drops beneath that key total to 43.5. I added a unit to the over, as promised. So I'm on the over. I'm on the Jets. I'm on Zonovan Knight props. A lot of bets for me in this Jets-Lions game.
Here's the thing for me is I'm not necessarily rooting against Zach Wilson as much as I am rooting for my Detroit Lions and just the way that they've been playing. They're 5-1 over the last 6 weeks. Their only loss has been narrowly to the Bills when there was 20 seconds left on Thanksgiving afternoon or whatever, and Josh Allen did what Josh Allen does, and we saw that again last night against the Miami Dolphins. Josh Allen is prime with 2 minutes left in games. It's just wild how he's able to capitalize with the last couple seconds. But the Lions have just been trending in the right direction. They've been averaging 32.2 points per game over the last 5 games, second to the Cowboys during that stretch. And most impressive for me is on the defensive side. After having one of the worst defenses in the league through the first 7 weeks, where they were giving up 32.1 points per game, the last 6 games, they've held their opponents to 20.3 points per game. That is a 12-point shift. That is a 2-score shift. I've just loved how the Lions defense has been playing. I know the Jets defense is going to be tough. For me, I've seen strides on both sides of the ball for the Lions. For the Jets, I don't know what their offense is going to look like. I know their defense is going to be solid. That's the one thing that worries me about this game. But now that the Lions are the underdogs, they've taken their money line and their spread. So I feel pretty good about them. But I do take the Lions money line every week, just so everyone knows. My better bet would be Lions plus 1.5. I take the Lions money line every week because that's my team. That's what I bet on. I don't give it out every week because it's not always the best bet to give out. But I just like having a little fun from my hometown.
Give it out. Who cares?
I don't know. Yeah.
People are going to be upset with you no matter what.
Every week.
Lauren, this is what I've learned. If you don't give it out and it wins, people will be upset with you. If you give it out and it loses, people will be upset with you. They're going to be upset with you no matter what. That's what I've learned in this business. They're going to hate. They're going to hate on you no matter what you do. So I think this is probably my favorite game of a week matchup wise. This is to me, this is kind of a playoff game. Like the Lions are kind of hovering and Seattle losing helps. The Jets with Miami losing also, that certainly helps. This is kind of a playoff game today. It's going to be a really good game. And there's a lot of storylines around this game. Aaron Glenn, defensive coordinator of the Lions, longtime Jet, had a great career. He comes back today. You get the Zach Wilson drama. There's a lot. This game's got everything. I'm so excited for this game.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun one. Last but not least, the other game that I'm really excited about, the Giants taking on the Commanders. The Commanders have been basically sleeping with the Giants playbook the last 3 weeks because they played in Week 13, 2020 tie. And the Commanders had a bye week last week in Week 14. Now, guess what? They're playing the Giants again. Literally, the only team that they've been focusing on is the Giants over the last 3 weeks. It's 2 NFC East teams, both fighting for wild card spots. The Giants down in the dumps after their loss to the Eagles in Week 14. They gave up 437 yards and 75% red zone scoring mark. The Commanders are feeling it. This game was flexed to primetime for a reason. Both teams need to win in Week 15 to help them get closer to locking in a playoff spot. Washington has to take advantage playing in front of a home crowd. And the Giants haven't won on the road, Jared, since October 23rd. It's been a minute. The Commanders' recent success is because of their defense. I'm excited for this game. I like the Commanders laying the points here, but I want to see how you feel. Yeah,
this was a worthy flex, I think. These teams have played some funky games. We had a tie a few weeks ago. You nailed it when we did Playbook earlier this week. The vibe of Washington literally sleeping on this Giants game plan for 3 weeks. 3 weeks ago, they played them, studied the game plan. 2 weeks ago, had a bye. Now this week, they are playing them again. Very unique situation. Of course, the Giants last week coming off of what was just an ass kicking by Philly. And you can really start to see the real Giants team come to the forefront the last few weeks. I think the number's probably fair here. The Giants don't have a lot going for them, but they always seem to play this Washington team tight. And these divisional games, besides games involving the Eagles, have been pretty tight in the NFC East this year. So I think you have to hold your nose and take the 4.5, or find another angle to this game that might work for you. I don't have anything here. It's a Sunday night game. I tend not to bet those unless I have a really, really, really good reason why. And I don't really have a really, really, really good reason why to lay 4.5 with Washington. I think that number's a little stretched. I think I would be willing to maybe lay 3, but 4.5 I think is a pass for me.
I also feel like this could be a good spot to possibly bet the over. It's set at 40.5 right now, that total is. Because both teams have gone under a ton this season. But you look at the 40 points that were scored in week 13. They logged 727 total yards of offense between the two teams. But they both had a really hard time finishing their drives. The teams combined for 7 of 27 on their third down attempts, which is crazy. I feel like it's going to be a little bit more successful today for both teams because the Giants are used to scoring on 61.5% of their red zone possessions. The fact that both teams combined only went 7 of 27 on third down attempts is not like both of those teams. So I feel like the offenses could get going a little bit more this time. Could be a good game for an over, just something to keep in mind. But I'm excited for this Sunday Week 15 slate. It's going to be great. Speaking of, do you have any teasers? Talk teasers to me. Do you have any teasers this week for Week 15?
It's a good question. I didn't bet any teasers. If I were to give one out, it would likely be the two games that I'm already on, which is Titans from 2.5 to 8.5, and the Steelers, I think, are a decent teaser option from 2.5 to 8.5 because that's a really low total game. And I think the Lions would be a decent teaser option too, from 2 to 8 as well. Those would be, I think, the best teaser options of the week. But I personally did not bet a teaser this week.
Okay. Interesting to know. I love it. I'm excited for Week 15. Before we get into our best bets, because I know we're hammering Week 15 hard, let's talk about Superbook Sports. Let's Bet It, presented by our friends at Superbook Sports. Go to superbook.com or download the app today. This season, guys, we are all rooting for safeties. That is because Superbook will give you a $50 bonus on each safety scored this season. Just place a $100 pregame bet on any spread or any total, and if there's a safety scored in any game on Sunday, you get a $50 bonus. Visit superbook.com for terms and conditions. Superbook.com, Gerard, to Pickswise.com. I'm sure we have some 3-star plays today. Who do we have?
We also have a 3-star goal by Angel Di Maria. It is 2-0 Argentina, and I feel good about saying Argentina is going to lift the World Cup, which means my guy Joe Burrow needs to hold it down today and get my cross-sport parlay across the finish line with his 2 touchdowns. But that's neither here nor there. 3-star bets: Chiefs, Bears, Cardinals. Howard Bender, Mark Zinno chiming in with that. And we got some hockey and some NBA as well. Tyler Mortimer, Jameer Poindexter, Philip Tomich with your non-football 3 stars on the site this morning.
Check out Pickswise.com for your full 3-star slate today. All right, our best bets of the day. This is not a game we talked about today, but Jared, give me your best bet.
Yeah, I'll stick to what I gave out on Playbook, and please go watch that. You've got about an hour plus or so to kill before these games start. Actually, you've got about 2 hours. Plenty of time to go back and watch Pickswise Playbook and soak up a lot more NFL information before these games start. But I am going to give you the under in Bears-Eagles. It's not a very analytical handicap. It's a numbers thing. My numbers have this pretty low in terms of where the total is. I've got this, where is my numbers? 17-13 Philly. I think Chicago covers. I think it stays under. I think Philly, the weather, I think will play a little bit of a factor. I'm not going to say it's going to be crazy, but it's going to be pretty cold in Chicago today. And Jalen Hurts hasn't played in these conditions. I think this will be the coldest game of his career, and neither is Justin Fields. These guys are used to either finishing their games in November, or not playing in the North when it comes to Jalen. So I think that plays into it. And I think next week's game for the Cowboys and the Eagles really plays into it. Kind of reminds me of that Dolphins-Texans game from a couple weeks ago. We bet the under in that game. Dolphins jumped out to a big lead, and then they just pumped the brakes in the second half. Eventually, game stayed under. I see Philly running it a lot. They've been running it well all season. The Bears can't stop the run. And Chicago's offense is a little nicked up. Montgomery was sick this week. Justin Fields missed practice time. The flu bug's going around the offensive locker room. You got Chase Claypool out with a knee injury, and they're coming off the bye. Usually when they come off the bye, teams that are not gifted offensive teams, start a little bit slow. So I think you put all that into a big stew, little weather, little look ahead, little injury vibes, and I think this game is a comfortable under here. And, Eagles-Bears. Under 49.
I like it. Okay, my best bet of the day, we talked about it a little bit. It is the Lions plus 1.5. I liked it at the
Boy.
Lions laying a point. I like it even more now with them getting a 1.5. I just love the improvement that they've had over the last 6 weeks. Obviously, they're 5-1. Their only loss has been a narrow loss, like I said, to the Bills on Thanksgiving. And the Jets, it's just too volatile with me, just not knowing what to expect from a guy like Zach Wilson after not playing the last few weeks. I love the Lions' offensive improvement. They're averaging 32.2 points per game over the last 5 games. But most importantly for me is their defensive improvement. Their first 7 games of the season, they were giving up 32.1 points per game. Now the last 6 games, they're holding their opposition to 20.3 points per game. I know the Jets have had they've had a tough time. They've kind of been a tough team to read. Lost 3 of the last 4. I don't know. And the Jets lost to the Vikings 2 weeks ago. The Lions handily beat the Vikings last week. I'm just riding with the hot hand, riding with my hometown team. The Lions 6-0 against the spread in their last 6 games, and they know that they have to win out to make the postseason. This is going to be a do or die situation for them. I think they're going to want to get it done. Jared, we'll see how it goes. Gentlemen shake on this game. We'll see who wins, straight up. I'm excited.
I'm not getting
Week
suckered
15,
into
baby.
a swag bet. I'm just
I
gonna
was
pray
going
that
to
my
try.
girl-
I was going to see if you brought it up, and if you didn't bring it up, I wasn't going to push it.
No, I'm cursed. It's like the Cubs Billy Goat. I have no hope whenever a swag bet is involved. But the more that I say
so
that,
no swag.
the more that I'll jinx it. So maybe one day you'll get me back to the window on a swag bet. How about this? I'll make a
Okay.
deal with you. The next time we do a show in person, I will make a swag bet with you.
Okay, that's good to know.
Whenever that
That's good
day
to know.
is. Hopefully it's soon.
I'm marking it down on my calendar. Just Sunday,
Mark it
December 18th. He will do a swag bet the next time we do a show in person. You'll love to see it. That's it for us today, guys. Find us on the Pickswise YouTube channel. Go to pickswise.com. Follow us on Twitter. Jared Smith, Lauren Jabara. We got Week 15 action coming at you. We'll see you tomorrow. Let's get it. Let's bet it.